Welcome everybody. I am Satya Mallick, and this is OpenCV's weekly webinar. We do this webinar every week, starting last week. And last week was a tremendous success. We got 250 people join the webinar, and throughout the webinar, we had that audience. And you know, it's it's beautiful in the sense that we are bringing the community together. OpenCV always has been, we were always in the background developing the library, and we were never actually communicating with the audience directly. And this webinar series gives us a chance to do exactly that, right? Connect with the audience. And we'll bring in different people from different companies. We will sometimes do tutorials, etc. So, but today we are going to do Modelplace.ai. This is a product that has been created in collaboration with OpenCV.ai, which is the for-profit arm of OpenCV. And the lead on this project, they are all here. Let me first introduce you to Anna. Anna is the CTO of OpenCV.ai, and I would let her introduce herself. Anna, would you like to speak 2 lines about yourself?
Sure. So as Satya said, I've been involved with OpenCV for quite some time now, have a big computer vision and deep learning background. And I'm going to talk why we created Modelplace.ai today based on my experience.
Great, thanks. And second, we have Grigory, and I will again let Grigory introduce himself. 2 lines about yourself, Grigory.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Grigory, and as well as Anna, I have lots of in my life together with OpenCV, and now together with Anna, we worked on this beautiful project with Modelplace.ai that we are going to present today. So I'm mostly on the technical part of it, and probably I will share some insight with you.
That's great. Alex, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex, and I'm actively working on the creation and improvements of technical stuff of the Modelplace.ai.
That's great. And Phil is our content manager. Phil, 2 lines about yourself.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, as Satya said, I'm content manager here. I'm happy to be co-hosting the webinar every week, and I'm really excited to have these folks here to talk about Modelplace.
That's great. Thanks, Phil. So Modelplace, I will let Anna talk about what Modelplace.ai is about and how it reduces the friction for testing out different models and how you can use it, and why we are calling it a marketplace. We will go over the technical details. What are the models available? We will also talk about the architecture behind this website and what kind of continuous integration we have deployed, etc. But let me first start with Anna. She will describe the product and also explain what was the motivation for creating this, this product for the computer vision community. Anna, take it from here.
Thank you. So hi, guys, and thank you for joining. So I've been in consulting and deep learning for quite some time now, and worked with a lot of different companies with from different backgrounds, different areas, such as autonomous driving, healthcare, sports, fashion, surveillance, and security, and so on. And in most of them, I saw the following process of computer vision or deep learning solution development. So first, we see that there is some new cool model on the market in GitHub, or there's some new article that will probably solve the problem that we are looking to solve. So we check out this code from GitHub, and we typically spend even up to 2 or even 3 days to set up the environment to be able to reproduce the model as authors claimed the results, right? To just get the same results that the authors get. Now, our goal here is not to reproduce the model on their results, but rather to understand how it works on our custom data, right? For example, data that is taken, that is captured on some specific facility, right? Or in with some specific camera. So we need to spend this up to 2 to 3 days just to understand whether this model is even applicable to our problem or it's not. And it's not, just like easy 2 or 3 days. They are typically very heavy loaded with engineering and data science work, trying to, set up the environment, install all the correct version of the libraries, install Qt drivers and stuff like that. So then we decide that, yeah.
And also, just to chime in, what you're saying is that there are 2 different kinds of problems. The very first problem is that even to try out this model, right, it takes a lot of, you have to download the GitHub repo, install code, make it work. And especially if you're working on an edge device like Raspberry Pi, then you have to do additional work, install the CUDA drivers and all those things that are necessary to make the model run. But that's only part of the problem, right? The other problem that you mentioned is that that model may not actually work for your data set. And a classic example, which, I have burnt my hand with this myself when I was starting with deep learning, was the classic pedestrian detection. We got a project where we had to detect pedestrians. And I thought that I'll just use an off-the-shelf model. And we did everything, but it did not produce good results. And the reason was that the angle of the camera. So most pedestrian detectors have been trained at eye level cameras, but if you go for a camera which is 12 feet high, looking down at the person, those models fail. So you cannot even be sure that after doing all the work, this thing is going to work on your platform. And the other thing is about speed also, right? You downloaded YOLO v4 for Raspberry Pi, and it's extremely slow. So that's another kind of problem. Sorry,
I would say there is also a third kind of problem. For example, at some point you decide that you need another model for the same purpose, but another one, and it has different API, and you need to change all your code that is around that model.
That's perfectly summed up. You have to, for trying out different models, you cannot do apples to apples comparison because the API is completely different. Anna, continue.
Yeah. I totally agree. So you need to spend several days to even understand whether you can use this model in your project or not, which is a lot of effort actually. So after this, for example, you decided that yes, this model is applicable to your problem and you can use it. Then you try to integrate it into your business logic, into your business processes. You typically spend from 2 to 3 months just to integrate it there. During this process, you will probably significantly refactor or fully rewrite the code that you downloaded, leaving only maybe a small part of that, because production-ready code and research code are 2 different planets. Also, you will probably convert for the target hardware, right? Initially, you may work with a model that is in PyTorch on TensorFlow, but your specific hardware may require a different framework like TensorRT or OpenVINO that you have to use, and you will need to convert your model into this framework to use. And then you will tweak the model to basically even run it correctly, because by different options of running the model on your target hardware, you may actually get up to 4x boost by using NPU or GPU instead of CPU processors. And you do all this engineering work in every project that you focus on. So this is actually a lot of work. It's not a one-person job. This is typically a team of people that focuses for several months on this job, just to integrate already existing model into your product. So what I was dreaming about is about 2 things. So first, I wanted to make, my intention was to make the testing less painful. And I always was dreaming about a thing that would let me just test every model right inside my browser, right? So that I don't have to spend like 1 or 2 days setting up the environment. And then it would be just perfect if the process of the integration wasn't as painful and would require not months, but rather days or even hours. This can be done by, for example, using standardized and, what's importantly, tested APIs with existing samples. So this was the intention behind the Modelplace.ai. We wanted to significantly increase the engineering efficiency of development of AI-based solutions. So this was our intentions. Again, so we wanted to make it available for the general public to test artificial intelligence-based models in minutes and then deploy them in hours. this was our goal.
And there is another aspect of it also, Anna, right? So what you described, it perfectly sums up when you know something about AI models available, right? That's the process you take. But there are people who have no idea, right? I mean, when you're a beginner, you have no idea what's available, right? You don't, for example, you may be thinking that you are going to use a classifier when you actually need a hand pose detector, right? So you and you may not even know that there exists something like a hand pose detector that you can use to detect, to track hands, the location of fingers, etc., to solve a particular problem. So Modelplace also gives you that exploration that, oh, all these different models are available, which there are these different problems that they solve. And it, for beginners at least, it lights up people's imagination that, oh, I did not know it was possible, but now I see it in this Modelplace, and this is what it does. And it's very visual. That's something I was blown away by, how well you can see, and then you have the JSON file also. Yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree with you, Satya. So an ideal case, it should be possible for a very skilled engineer who knows nothing about data science to be easily able to integrate an existing solution to their application and build upon that, right? So this is the goal. So let me show you what we came up with trying to solve these problems I was talking about.
So while Anna is about to share her screen, I want to reiterate that people, please stick around till the end. All the people, this website is currently in closed beta. It is by invitation only, and we will collect all the emails and give you access, free access to the website, whoever is on this webinar. So stick around to learn more about this. Okay. Anna, go ahead.
Okay, so here you can see the marketplace of the models that we created. It contains lots of different models in different domains. For example, this is the general purpose detection, text detection, emotion recognition, vehicle license recognition, and models like that, right? So they cover a huge variety of different domains. Upon these models, basically, multiple different applications can be built, solving different problems across different domains. So all the results that you can see here are real results. They are not drawn by our designer, but rather they are the results of inference of these very models on these very images that we took that we chose for the marketplace. You can even see that for some models, the results are not, pixel perfect. For example, here you can see that the text detection result does not, fully cover the text here. We want to be completely transparent and honest about how models work, not, only showing the good sides of them, but also showing their weaknesses here, to kind of make a clear way to choose the best model that works for your application. Now let's go into one of the models. For example, let's check out their emotion recognition model. So I was talking about how testing is painful and takes a lot of time to even test a model. We wanted to solve this by in-browser testing. What I'm talking about is this button here. So for example, you can already see that we took this image and ran the emotion recognition on this image, but I'm able to upload my own photo to check out how this model would work on the device, on this image. So let me actually select a photo for me. I will select this one. Right now, what happens here is this image goes all the way to our cloud infrastructure, where we will set up and run a worker that would infer this model in the cloud environment. Then it will send the results back to me, and I will see the visualization of these results from the cloud. So it typically takes several minutes or even less to get the results back from the cloud. I will let Alexander and Grigory talk a bit about how our infrastructure is built and why it takes some time to get the results from the from the Cloud Run.
But Anna, is it not true that it is the first time it takes a little bit time, but then
Yes.
the model gets loaded? Okay.
In short, we chose the kind of ecological way to infer these models. We don't have the servers running there all the time for us, but we set up, like we run the server that would infer this very image, and then we close it right after we are done. So we are a small company. We don't have, a huge stack of servers fully running just to, do that. But we chose the ecological way that would actually mean less energy spent on this in this case. Typically, like I tested this model before with the webinar multiple times, and it typically took me under 30 seconds to get the results. Now, Phil was joking that is definitely something will go wrong during the live presentation, and yeah, you can see that it already takes 3 times more time than it took before I tested it live. I tested it beforehand. But yeah, let me actually try it once again. So I am not sure why it's taken so long.
Probably it's a good time to switch a bit to the architectural questions while Anna is getting her image done, and discuss why it's actually taking its time to be calculated. So first you should know that basically we can split all the use cases for inference servers for the neural networks for sure into 2 groups. In one group, I would say you have something like streaming video. And for that, you definitely need your server to be running all the time to reply the result as soon as possible. However, our situation is different. Oh, we got the image.
Yeah, again, it took 30 seconds, just like the tests beforehand. So yeah, you can see that it worked on the image, and it says that this person is most certainly happy. We can also look at the code results here. So it is a JSON file that will show the location of the bounding box for the person. Class name is person, obviously, because we detected a person. And then we ran the emotions here, and the class name is happy. So 99% is that probability goes to this person is happy. We also have other emotions here, which is surprise, sad, anger, neutral. Yeah, Grigory, please go on.
Yeah, so our situation is a bit different since we don't have the video, we have images. And on top of that, we have not only one model to be run against these images, but we have lots and lots of models, and we are expecting that the number of these models will grow. So what we decided to do instead, we decided to run, as Anna said, an ecological way and allow our service to start at the moment that our users want to get the results on their images. After that, for sure, the server will run for some period of time. So if, for example, you have started the session with putting the images to the server, the next image will be inferred much faster. It works good in terms of, you know, that all the major cloud providers, they provide you now some functionality named cloud functions or something like that, where you don't write lots of the code to run your needed functionality, and you don't know what is hardware behind your code, but it will run at some moment and provide the results. So the idea here is similar. But since we need to infer the neural networks, some heavy lifted models sometimes and some fast models at other time, so hardware is different each time. So to leverage these different types of hardware to give the flexibility of all the types of environments, backends, you know, we can run PyTorch models, we can run TensorFlow models, we can run ONNX models. All these different types of models require the different environments. That's why we rely on Kubernetes for its flexibility in runner scheduling, in environment provisioning, and all the stuff. So it's one of the key components of our ecosystem. It's Kubernetes-based system. surely we use Docker for containerizing our environments for all of the models. Another key component is, again, as we are not targeting the video use case, I mean streaming video use case, when you run on video stream for one camera or two cameras, well, many cameras, like in video analytics in some store, we do pipelines of the images, we do queues of these images, and all this work is piped through this queue. So actually behind the scene, we have all this long pipeline with front-end server replying you to the response for the image, getting the image, putting it to the queue. Then worker grabs the image from the queue, do the work with the neural network specified, and putting the result into another queue. Then visualization exporter takes the result from that queue. I mean, the result is this JSON that Anna showed, and doing the visualization with all these labels, making GIFs, and stores them to cloud storage. And after that, you got the notification browsing that the result is ready and it's shown. So the pipeline is not very short. You actually don't have only one web server that do all the stuff. It's actually a teamwork. Alexander? Yeah, Satya?
Yeah. Well, so one of the questions actually I had for Anna is that people may be having this question in their mind that some of these, emotion recognition, pedestrian detection, etc., you can get it on Amazon cloud, or say Google provides some, features, as well as Microsoft. How is this marketplace different from the offering that we see, from these big players?
Okay, so two answers. First, in terms of the cloud inference, cloud models, we are targeting to be more to have more variety of models. I will speak about this a bit later, but we want to cover not only the major scenarios like general purpose object detection or facial landmarks, but also more narrow scenarios that are actually necessary to build different applications on top of them. And the second answer is that we do not only target cloud inference part. In fact, with time, we expect that it will become the less important part of our offering, but we will focus more on the mobile and edge devices. So even now, we already have a support for OpenCV AI Kit for 20 models in this marketplace. This means that these models, 20 models from the marketplace, can be very easily ran on the OpenCV AI Kit. And they are specifically, in fact, targeted to this device. In future, we will support Python wheels, which will enable you to infer the networks on basically any computer that supports Python and major frameworks. And the plan, the further step for us would be to support TF Lite, which will unlock mobile market for us.
That's great. So let me summarize, and if I missed something, let me know. What you just said is that when we go to these big providers, right, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, they have their emotion recognition, right? They have, and you can use that. But what if you want to test different emotion recognition algorithms out there, right? Something new has come up. Something was published in CVPR. We are going to actually take that model and deploy it here so that you can compare it with existing models. So that's one benefit. The other one you mentioned was that there are some big problems like pedestrian detection, general purpose problems, but people are looking for very specific solutions. And in that case, it could be that you're looking for a model for, say, detecting a particular disease, right? Using skin samples. And maybe only 1,000 people in this world would be interested in those kinds of solutions. But somebody from the community could upload that model, and other people from the community would be able to use that model and try it out without much of a hassle, right? So we are not really competing with these big players in that domain. We are taking care of the long tail of problems that people want to solve. Finally, you also mentioned that we will provide downloadable solutions where you could use a Python wheel, you can download it and run it on your Raspberry Pi or something like that. And because we have tested everything, we will guarantee that this is going to work, and we will also produce benchmarks. Do you want to talk a little bit about, our continuous integration that we have developed, how that works, and what devices are there right now, and what do we plan to have in the future?
Sure. So yeah, thank you, Satya, for covering that. We do test everything that we create, and this is one of the major things that we want to do behind the marketplace. We want to make models, make artificial intelligence model way more reproducible than they are right now. So at this point, it's not always that you can reproduce the results that are claimed in the paper. In our case, we want to make sure that everything that we produce to our visitors, all the models work exactly like promised. So to do that, we created a pretty enhanced infrastructure and continuous integration that we run on every commit to our repositories. So you can see here that we do testing for multiple parameters. Not all of the commits that we here have passed their testing successfully, which actually means it's actually a good thing, because it shows that the code coverage is very high. And if you change something, it's a very high chance that some small thing may be broken in the end, and you will have to fix it before pushing the code into the main branch. So this enhanced testing is run for both the cloud infrastructure and for Oak. So for all the models that we provide with Oak support for all these 20 models at this point, we do nightly testing for their samples, which means that the code that we provide for them and the models that we ship do work for the hardware just like promised. I also wanted to discuss the benchmarking, and I saw that there are some questions, and thank you for the questions, by the way. Really appreciate them. So there were questions about the benchmark. Yes, one of the goals of creating marketplace is to be able to not, test a single model, but to be able to compare models to each other. And to do that, you basically need to be able to compare their accuracy on the same data set, and to compare their energy efficiency and runtime on the same hardware, something that you can never come by at this point of time, because the protocols of testing for models are typically different, and it's hard to compare them on the same hardware. So there are some repos that try to solve these tasks, but there is no, common solution at this point. So we do plan to introduce a benchmark capability to the marketplace based on our nightly testing scheme. You can expect that to be one of the later features of the marketplace that we would very much want to introduce later this year. So we do not only test our models, but we also show how to use them. So recently we published a blog post on the OpenCV.ai blog that shows emotion recognition model from our marketplace that is ran on Oak, on OpenCV.ai Kit, to create a fancy application. So we wanted to create a real-time reaction videos. Imagine that you saw a new trailer on YouTube and you want to understand what was the reaction of your friends to this very trailer. So what we did is we downloaded the model from the marketplace. We used Oak to run it on, and we also implemented a small amount of code to introduce the business logic I was talking about, to analyze the emotions of people who were watching this video. We show and we show how we did it in this blog post, and you can also download the code for this how to do this later in the post. And by the way, all the samples that are compatible with OpenCV AI Kit are also open sourced. I will talk about this a bit later. So let me actually show a video of how it works. So this is Alex here reacting to a new trailer. First, he's very happy, then he becomes hungry, and then surprised. And you can see that we analyzed how happy or angry or sad he was during this video, right? So you can see that Alex first was surprised, then he was angry, and then he was neutral, right? And mostly, on average, he was pretty happy with what he saw in this trailer. So this is the demo that we prepared. And once again, you can download the code for this blog post on our GitHub repo.
So that's the thing I really like, Anna, that when we are building this community, we are not just focusing on, oh, here's a tool that you can use, but we also plan to create very rich content around the Modelplace. So you will see regular blog posts from us. You will see, not just how to use the model, but how to build interesting applications around it. So that's something very high on our agenda as well.
Totally. So we are very, very much devoted to this. Okay, so here on Marketplace, let's go back here. You can see a link to Oak Ready Model. What does it mean? It will basically mean that this link will lead you to our repo of Oak model samples. And there are examples of every model. There is a demo for every model, how it works on real data. So for every model here, which is like, as I said, there are 20 of them. You can go to the corresponding folder, go through the instructions that we prepared on how to set up the model, and very quickly get your results running on OpenCV AI Kit. So our intention is to support more and more hardware devices in future, as I said. So please stay tuned to our updates. Okay, so next steps, as I said, would be to enlarge the support for the hardware. But let me also talk about how we are going to license the models and what would be the cost of their usage. So we currently, most of the models, like all the models that we supply for OpenCV AI Kit are free, and these 20 models will stay free forever. For other models, we will introduce different licensing schemes. Most probably we will have a developer license that will allow the development of the application, and the enterprise licenses that will be for the enterprise for already existing applications that use our models. So one of the intentions.
What is the timeline for the model, when we can have, right now all models are free, but at some point we will introduce paid models also, right? And for that, there is some amount of development effort, encrypting the models, etc. that needs to go. What is the timeline? When are we thinking that we will be able to produce that version?
So you can expect this to happen later this year, probably somewhere close to Q3. Or later in Q2. So one of the big intentions behind creating the marketplace was to democratize the market and allow talented research people, talented model developers to monetize on their talent. We want them to be able to sell the models that we create on our marketplace. And we also want to encourage owners of some specific unique types of data to be able to sell the models that they can create upon this data. For example, for this example that Satya was mentioning earlier, right? For skin treatments, right? For example, there is definitely a lot of data in the world that is not exposed at this point, but we want these people to, create models upon this data and allow other people to create solutions upon that. So I will stop the screen sharing right now. Okay, so To do that, we will basically provide the capabilities for people to submit their models into our marketplace. If you have any questions to us and want to submit the model right now, please contact us through the contact form on the site. We will be able to integrate your model and sell it through the marketplace. We want to, in general, our intention is to be able to have a unique collection of different models for different use cases, all collected in one place and unified by one API, also tested nightly to ensure that they work. In general, the goal, as I said, is to increase the efficiency of creation of AI-based solutions in the world. And we believe this is the right way to go.
Right. Anna, what you just said, is that it is not just that we are going to produce high quality models. We will continue expanding the types of models, general purpose models, also specific models. And some of them, a fraction of them would be paid because, it takes a year or two to develop some of these models. For example, our people tracking model, we have been working on it for a couple of years. And so some of the models will be paid, others would be free. But the more important part is that the community will help us expand the size of the model marketplace. Suppose you have developed a very good model for a specific task and would like to contribute the model, either paid or free. Paid version would come later. But right now, if you want to contribute something for free, then your model can be part of the model place. And right now there is no fee for it, nothing. We will work with you to get this model onto the model marketplace so that a very large audience is able to try out your model, right? So it's truly a marketplace. That's why we don't think of this as a model zoo. It's a model marketplace where we are connecting people who create models and to people who need those models. And we are also going after the fat tail, the long tail of this distribution, where there could be only 1,000 people interested in certain kinds of models. But we want to capture and contribute to that audience.
Yeah, and I also would like to add that, for example, you may be afraid that you have no data for such a model. And for example, you only have public data sets that all have models that are explored and trained on them and published with some academic papers. So what can you contribute? Actually, you can, because you can imagine that there are lots of different types of hardware. For example, you have OpenCV kit, you have desktops, you have GPUs, you have Coral boards, you have Jetsons, you have Raspberry Pis, lots and lots of different types of hardware. I haven't mentioned the phones, but yes, you can also think about them. And for all of these different types of hardware, different kinds of models solving exactly the same problem will be beneficial, either in terms of speed, either in terms of latency, either in terms of weight size. So you can have very large number of different combinations of model parameters solving exactly the same problem. And for people, for their specific use cases, this specific model will be beneficial over the model with some another parameters.
And also, that's a great point, Grigory. And one other point I would like to make, just to add to that, is the same architecture, when trained on different data set, would produce different results, right? And that's very important also. And we also provide you on the Modelplace.ai, you will see that it also tells you what data set it was trained on. If it is a public data set, we tell you what data set it was trained on, so you get a sense of what kind of problems this would be able to solve, right? And that kind of information, all this information coming to one place, you just look at this and it's a consistent format, you can try it out. I think that's very, very valuable for users. So now I think we have come to the 40-minute mark, and usually at this time we take questions from the audience. Phil, would you like to, can you help us
Yeah,
filter out
absolutely.
the questions? Yeah,
you bet. Yeah, we've got some good ones here. I'll go in order of when they were asked to try to be most fair. Starting with, obviously, a bunch of questions about Modelplace.ai. A few people have wondered about if there's been any thought with regards to the specific pricing structure for future use when the models aren't free.
Anna, would you like to take
Anna?
this question?
Yeah, sure. Of course. So we do not provide some specific numbers at this point. Moreover, these numbers will definitely depend on the specific model that we are talking about. However, what we are targeting is to make it not expensive. So our goal is not to have it, hundreds of thousands of dollars, obviously. Our goal, this is not, finalized or anything yet, but we would like to have some, only to make a pricing so it works just for several dollars per device, right, in the enterprise mode. So it doesn't, increase the cost of the product significantly. And it is only, taken per device, not per the whole solution. So for, you can imagine that for small companies and for different companies, this pricing would be a fair way to kind of like to create a pricing strategy. Moreover, we will provide developer license, which will allow to develop the model on top of our develop an application on top of our model that will work for the development teams.
Yeah, and also,
moreover, yeah.
Go ahead, sorry, Anna. I'll let you finish and then I'll have a thought.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about is not like, only a model, but also a sample on how to integrate it into your solution and a standardized API that will make working with this model as easy as possible. There was a question about is data scientist needed to work with such model? So our ideal vision is that you only need a skilled engineer who is not expert in data science to work with the interfaces and samples that we provide.
That's great. And also, one other thing I would like to emphasize is that once it becomes a marketplace where people are contributing solutions for the same exact problem, then the prices are determined by the market, right? How much is somebody willing to pay? And when there is competition in the market, right, they will compete for the same audience and they will bring down the price to a level where it is fair for everybody, right? So the market, so there are models that we will produce, and then there are models that others would produce, and they will have the flexibility of, determining their price. If the price is not right, then the market would not, they'll receive feedback from the market, and that will be, how it will be fixed. There will be between OpenCV.ai and the people, who create the model, there would be a revenue sharing arrangement, very similar to, how the app stores work right now. But these things are coming later in the year. We don't have the infrastructure ready for that yet.
Yeah, and I believe in case, and go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to, comment that right now there's, no real market for people to monetize on their skills in terms of model development. So there are public models that you can download on GitHub that are for free. And also there is a lot of, thousands or maybe millions of private models that companies create inside them and sell by contracts, right? By contracting arrangements to other companies. But this market is not open. And our goal here is to democratize it, to help companies and researchers find their client and sell their models, and eventually kind of make these models work for some real life applications.
Great, thanks. We've got some more here. Yasir wants to know, will they be able to retrain models with their own data that were found on Modelplace?
So Modelplace is not targeted at that. However, we are partnering with partners like RoboFlow and SuperAnnotate that are going to provide their models into our interfaces. And what we are discussing with them right now is the possibility to tune the models that they created for us. Yes.
And by the way, I think next week we have RoboFlow. They will join us, and we will, you can ask them this question as well.
Yep. Great. There's another question here about the infrastructure. What, if you don't mind saying, like what cloud infrastructure is being used here? Is there a specific service, or is it being run at a co-location facility, or?
We are working with Google Cloud Kubernetes for now because we selected it just because of great support for Kubernetes. I know that other major providers also support it, but it's actually Google's development, so probably they know better how to do things with it. And surely we use some local servers to do heavy testing of our models. Since we test all of our models not only in cloud infrastructure but for the devices that we are targeting them for, so we have this local testing too. But all the live version of the models, they are working in Google Cloud.
Yeah, but toolchain, Grigory, correct me if I'm wrong. It's always that you can move the infrastructure from one provider to another without much of a disruption, right?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yes, go ahead.
I can answer that because we follow infrastructure as code principles. So we use like Terraform for that, and it will not be so difficult to move from one cloud provider to another, just because we have like the same file that can be used for different providers.
Great, yeah. Someone would also like to know, can a model developed and downloaded from Modelplace be used on say Microsoft or Google or Amazon cloud infrastructure in the same way that it would be with say Oak?
In the future, when we have the wheels, you can pretty much, when we produce Python wheels for it, you could pretty much use it anywhere that you can run Python, right? So there are no restrictions. So yeah, the answer is yes, but we don't have it yet. Right now we have a cloud version, and for some models we have the Oak version, but eventually we will have the Python wheel version as well.
Cool. Another question here is about the hardware. I know many of these devices are specifically tested on Oak because Oak is great, but what about say Lattice Semi or some of these other devices?
Yeah, this is also Anna, go for it. Okay, these things are also in plans because we understand that for many people, their target devices not orgs, not cloud infrastructures. They want their models to work on the phones or other devices. So what we are planning for is that for all of the models, we will provide such versions that work on specific devices. For example, for the same model, you can have TF Lite version, Caramel version, I don't know, Onyx version that works on your CPU, and others. So it actually requires some work from either our team or contributors of the models, and we will somehow make an agreement who will do this for each of the specific models. But yes, it's in plans.
Great, thanks. We've got another question here about, this is an interesting one I hadn't considered. What about audio models? Is there any process or is there any idea of adding audio neural networks to this service?
Yeah, so this is something we thought of, but we decided to not work on at this point. However, from the technical perspective, there is nothing forbidding us from doing that. I guess if we have enough signals from our visitors that audio is an interesting domain to analyze, we will definitely do this at some point.
Cool.
I also wanted to encourage everyone. So when testing the marketplace, please send us your feedbacks. Any ideas are very, very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and stick around, folks, because we will be sending invites to everyone that's around at the end of the session. I would like to quickly do a shout out to some of the Oak 2021 hashtag users, if that's okay. Cortic Technology has been posting these cool videos. I'm going to link these in the chat here for Charlie, their robot that they're working. If you're in the OpenCV AI competition 2021 and you would like to see, like us to talk about you here, the best thing you can do is post stuff using the hashtag Oak 2021. I'm also linking Gerard Espona, who posted this Unity integration that they're working on, which was like just surprising out of nowhere to see a really good functional Unity integration. Just kind of randomly posted to LinkedIn. So I thought I'd give him a shout out here. Getting back to the questions, we've got a few minutes left here. So if someone was asking about exclusivity on models, for example, if they're creating models with a client, can they license it exclusively using Modelplace.ai in the future somehow for a specific use case?
So this is an interesting question. We didn't think about this model. What we were thinking about is rather, an app store for models, right? When everybody can buy some useful model. Probably the answer would be at this point, no. But we could discuss it later. So please, if you have any ideas regarding that, write us a feedback on the site.
Great, thanks. Someone also has asked, could you talk a little bit about the differences between the intention of Modelplace and Onyx?
So yeah, that's an interesting one. So Onyx is, a common format for models, artificial intelligence models that can be converted to many different frameworks like TensorRT, OpenVINO, like TF-Lite, and other that can be inferred on the device. However, it's not, a fully ready solution with a sample, tested and, tried and tested. Also, the API for this model is not something that is, standardized and fixed. So essentially, Onyx model is pretty close to any other model in terms of that you will need to test it yourself, you will need to write the code for it yourself, and probably you will need to convert it to your target hardware also yourself. Marketplace is higher in the level of abstraction here, solving kind of these problems for you already.
Great, thanks. A few other people have asked about providing their own models. What should they do if they have a model that they think belongs on Model Marketplace? Who should they send that to and how?
Sure. So just use submit a model form on our site. We will be super happy to receive a line about that.
Great. Satya, we got about 5 minutes left. Do you want to put a button on this?
Oh, yeah. So basically, I want to, thank everybody who, showed up for this webinar. And you guys are helping us a lot in developing new products and, helping OpenCV in general, because ultimately, it's very satisfying to work for the community, to see this kind of audience and get feedback, live feedback from the audience while we are developing new products. So I hope that this Modelplace would be, a game changer for many of you who are beginners in AI and also who are developing AI products. And all the people who were on this webinar, give us a couple of hours. We will export this list and send you an invitation to Modelplace.ai. And you can try it out. If you have any questions, please send us an email. And if you have any suggestions, we are very eager for your suggestions as well. So you can reply to the email that we send out with the invitation, and we will handle those emails. Finally, I would like to thank everybody on the panel for making this a great informational session. It's really great. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. I wanted to note that this invite will allow you to test the models on the marketplace this point. So the site itself is open for the general public, but for testing functionality is not yet. Please try it and report us with any suggestions again that you have. And thank you for joining.
That's great.
Yes, and as a reminder, next week we have RoboFlow joining us, and we'll announce the week after that next week. So stay tuned. We'll, of course, let people know who joined when it's coming up. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Satya, any last words?
That is it. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Take care out there.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the webinar. You can catch us again next Thursday at 9 a.m. Same bat time, same bat channel. Attendees of this week's webinar were given free invites to Modelplace.ai. Who knows what we'll give away next week?